Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and folk of all ages, you know what time it is. It is time for the holidays, holy days, and days of remembrance for our folk. And October 2024, we start today. October 1st is the day of remembrance for John Gibbs Bailey. October 9th, we have the Day of Remembrance for Meister Guido von List. We help celebrate the birthday of founder McNallen on October 15th. And on October 19th is Winter Nights. Well, we got a lot to go over today. 4 holidays. Let's get down to it. And as I said, on October 1st is the Day of Remembrance for John Gibbs Bailey, born May 22nd, 1913, and passed away on January 1st, 2003. John Gibbs Bailey, better known as Hoskuld, was a very private man. There are no known photographs of him, and even those in the highest positions within the Odinic Rite knew very little about his personal life. His birth date, as well as the date of his death, are not commonly known. Despite this lack of information, the legacy of Hoskuld is one that continues to impact Asatru today. While we do not have much information about his life, it is commonly known that Gibbs Bailey had an interest in organized Asatru since at least the 1930s. Throughout the years, Gibbs Bailey realized that in order to truly organize Asatru, he would need a strong foundation and doctrine. Gibbs Bailey met John Yole in the late 1950s, and in 1973, they founded the Committee for the Restoration of the Odinic Rite. During the early years of the Odinist Committee, Gibbs Bailey held a more public role. He began to use the name Hoskuld, one he had adopted from the name of Hoskuld Dalakolsson, an Icelandic Gothi who lived in the 10th century Common Era. It was also during this time that many of Hoskuld's ideas on doctrine were recorded, the most notable examples of this being the 9 Noble Virtues. Although Hoskuld had been working on the non-noble virtues for many years by this point, it was not until his partnership with Stubba that they took on their current formats. Prior to this, there were only 8 virtues, and they were not in the same order used today. In the late 1970s, it was decided amongst the 2 founders that Stubba would begin to take on a more public-facing role, and Hoskuld would step back from the spotlight. In the 1980s, after Stubba renamed the organization the Odinic Rite, Hoskuld was named the first treasurer. Not much else is known about the life and deeds of Hoskuld after this point. Despite the lack of biographical information, we can still learn from the life of Hoskuld. The very virtues by which we live our lives as Asatru were first compiled by Hoskuld and form a foundation for all those of our faith. On October 1st, 2023, the AFA marked the first official celebration of a Day of Remembrance for John Gibbs Bailey, known as Hoskuld. Hail, Hoskuld. Alrighty, we follow that up on October 9th for the Day of Remembrance for Meister Guido von List. Born October 5th, 1848, passed away May 17th, 1919. Born in 1848 in Vienna, Guido Karl Anton List was the son of a prosperous middle-class family who traded and worked in the leather goods industry. Raised a Roman Catholic, List found his love of mythology and history early in life, often acknowledging that his beliefs in the Aesir and Odin in particular developed during those younger years. A scholar, painter, and writer, his big ambition was to live his life doing the things he loved. His father, however, pressured him strongly into taking over the family business. In his spare time, he continued to write and paint. He also took part in several leisure sports clubs, such as rowing and mountaineering. During one of his many trips, Liszt reportedly left his group to spend a solitary summer atop Gieselberg Fort. Here it is said he reaffirmed his belief in Odin. Upon the death of his father in 1877, Liszt abandoned his family business in favor of pursuing his writing passion. Despite being an avid believer in Odin, he married his second wife in a Protestant ceremony in 1899. This didn't hamper his writings or his influence, however, and by 1902, when his writings took on a different direction, he was a prolific and well-known voice in the nationalist and Volkisch movements. It was in 1902 that von Liszt had his great epiphany. After a cataract surgery left him blind for 11 months, Liszt was left with much time for reflection and meditation. During this time, he discovered the Armanen runes. He called this set of runes the proto-language of the Aryan race. It was through these runes that von Liszt's occult ideas and writings evolved. The popularity of his ideas exploded amongst the wealthy middle class of Austria and Germany at the time, and the Guido von Gesellschaft was born. The von Liszt Society further evolved, and on the midsummer of 1911, the inner group, called the High Armanist Order, was created. While the main group focused on his occult and political ideologies, the inner group was dedicated to the worship of Odin through his writings and sacred pilgrimages. With food shortages after the war, and old age creeping up on him, von Liszt's health deteriorated, and in May of 1919, he passed away at the age of 71. His body was cremated and buried in an urn in the Vienna Central Cemetery, Central Friedhof. Among his many novels, plays, and political manuscripts, it was his first dedicated occult manuscript, Das Geheimnis der Runen, or The Secret of the Runes, that really sets Guido von Liszt up as a forefather of modern Asatru, influencing many, including the Asatru hero, Alexander Radmils. We can never anticipate when the spark of inspiration will lead to the flame of an idea. It's easy to look at that inspiration and say that it isn't real, or it's just imagination going crazy. With faith, however, our limitations can be cast off. Have faith in the Aesir. Have faith in our ancestors and our folk soul. Have faith in yourself. Each one of us can accomplish great things if we work hard enough and maintain our faith. Guido von Liszt is the dedicated hero of Odenshof. For more information and a deeper dive into the life and acts of Meister von Liszt, check out odenshof.org. Hail Meister Guido von Liszt! Hail Odin! On October 15th, I don't know if we would call it a holiday, and we certainly yet wouldn't call it a day of remembrance, but it is definitely a day of honor. The birthday of our founder, Stephen McNallen. Anyone who has raised a horn in honor of our ancestral gods has done so because of, or in spite of, Stephen McNallen. Als Herrigothi Matt Fravel, Ostara in the South, March 2020. This month we celebrate the birth of our founder, Stephen McNallen. Before he became the father of modern Asatru, before he started a religious movement on his own. Before the Kennewick Man, he was born in a small rural town in Texas in 1948. On a more intimate level, I chose my parents well. My father was a hard-working Irish Catholic oil hand who had come to Texas for the oil boom some years earlier. And my mother was a loving, kind, and intelligent woman who, significantly, bought me the books I wanted and read them to me. Founder McNallen developed an interest in pre-Christian religion in college after reading the book The Viking by Edison Marshall. In 1968 or 69, he dedicated himself to the worship of the gods of Europe. In 1969 to 70, he founded the first Asatru church in the New World, the Viking Brotherhood, which gained tax-exempt status in 1972. He began writing and distributing the Rune Stone, which was hand-typed and copied on a mimeograph machine. At first, it was a private thing, but then I began quietly promoting the religion, which at that point I simply called Norse paganism, as I had no name for it. I really was starting from scratch. About the time of my graduation from college, I started a minuscule publication called the Runestone. I cranked it out on a mimeograph machine. The first run was 11 copies. Within a year or so, August 29, 1972, I had received recognition of the Viking Brotherhood as a tax-exempt religious organization. After reading Magnus Magnusson's book, Hammer of the North, or first heard the word Asatru, Founder McNallen began to use and promote his religious ideal as Asatru rather than Odinism. At some point during his time in the U.S. Army, Founder McNallen began to adopt the belief that Asatru was a religion of the peoples of Europe, rather than being a religion for all, thus adopting folkism. In 1976, after being discharged from the Army, he renamed the Viking Brotherhood to the Asatru Free Assembly. In 1987, Steve dissolved the Free Assembly. After seeing what American Asatru had developed into, which denied that Asatru was a uniquely ethnic faith, Mr. McNallen stepped back into the Asatru scene, establishing the Asatru Folk Assembly. The emphasis on folk to differentiate from the universalist lie that threatened to take hold of our ancestral faith. It flourished. Over the years it grew. I wrote to Asatru and Native European spirituality, which defines my convictions and purpose. We purchased a permanent building which became Odenshof, our first temple to the gods. The AFA has since expanded to include 4 hofs in the USA and continues to grow. In 2016, after leading the Asatru Folk Assembly for 20 years, I turned it over to a younger generation and started the next phase of my service to my gods and my folk. In the years since Mr. McNallen retired, he has remained an active participant in Odenshof, with charitable giving and contributing in any way possible. It is often said that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and none are more giant than that of our founder, the first Ástheiðargothi. Thank you, and happy birthday, Mr. McNallen, from all of us in the Asatru Folk Assembly. And our final special day for the month is the holiday of Winter Nights, which falls on October 19th of 2024. Autumn has officially started. The days are noticeably shorter. The nights are noticeably cooler. The trees are ablaze with the colors of fall, and the crunching of the fallen leaves underfoot has begun. All around us the world is dying. This was a time of drawing in close, of hearth and home and family. For our ancestors, this was not an autumn festival, but a quiet winter rite, in which the female spirits were honored in a rite called Die Sierblot. Today, winter nights is often seen as the death of the physical world, the world we can see, and the reawakening of the intangible. It is the world of high energy, of spirits. It is that deeper feeling and connection to the things we know to be there. This is the time we honor our Disir, our female ancestors. We remember that without our ancient mothers, we could not be. They cared for the home and the hearth fires. They cared for their families. Our ancient mothers, with strength and determination, raised the next generation against odds we cannot really begin to fathom. With the harvests finished, there's a quiet lull before we turn our minds to the hectic holiday season. Now is a good time to turn inwards in introspection and to self-improvements. It is also the time to meditate on things of a more spiritual nature. Connect to the energy that is always there. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for another month. We'll return again in November. But until then, hail the gods, hail the folk, hail Hoskuld, hail Meister Guido von List, hail Founder McNallen, hail the mothers, and hail the AFA. Good night, everybody. Be well.